Oh, there are a bunch of interbranch and foreign families who have roles with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, with databases, including medical databases, Empire database campuses, families running into the medical locations. Like, for example, Hartford Hospital has an Institute of Living, part with their campus, and the triages, where they have mental health care sides of campuses, and they force mental evaluations when there are arguments and things like that, for example. In other words, but they've been putting fake conversations, fake ties to people of all ages and natures there, and covering up where they have already had roles with all natures of crime scenes, even next to body dumping spots and next to every spot, next to everyone. All natures of conjunctions to people haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence. All sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court's names, and the news putting the same sequence shifts at the same time as collusion slash that's also the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, including with terrorists and counters to them with their syntax, including with like word uses of words like radical and extremists. You know, the nature debate contains quality aspects in nature originally and still criminally pointable as tactically delusions raw. A bunch of doctors are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved. Intercities involved with more proven first force child abusers, leaders, and kids. They have rules of body dumping spots, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They have personal and professional rules with judges and prosecutors and with their family members, and different natures of ties to mayors, retired through through administrations, since just through lifetimes, since I was a kid. Increasingly, they have been building upon those, and through in other words, the differences of their administration. The difference, so we have the same colorized, different colorized at the same time. See, nature teaches about difference, shows about difference, other than people abridged with thought and with information. And Anthony Yagman recorded, expressed, demonstrated, confirmed on Facebook. He has roles with, and in person, he has roles with various natures of drugs and medicines crimes with kids and social security scams with some doctors from Hartford Hospital, like one's named Leahy, who attached me to fake conversations with themselves, pretended that through the mail too to people. They have roles with Brian Silver with New Britain Superior Court and with Connecticut's District Court and with Judge Smith and a Judge Killian. And that, with more sexual and medical offenders of kids they had roles with. They have pictures of their own kids mixed in there. In other words, because they're trying to put cover-ups. They have Facebook involved with them personally and professionally, and with the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, personally and professionally with the FBI and their Facebook page, and with the Wethersfield Police with their Facebook page, also with the FBI and other police departments, and Whiting Forensics with a Bob Chase involved with a Phil Colo and a Joshua Julian, also involved with the Joshua Schumack and a bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, like a Mark Violet, also involved with bunch of people at intercampuses and with Central Connecticut State University and with the Board of Education and with the town of Wethersfield offices and the community center. Increasingly, people I don't know at all and people that I only know seeking me out to make confessions, demonstrations of the roles of various natures of organized crime, and then pretending, and their roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, all kinds of scams on off the state corrections and judicial branch offices have something to do with the names at next to the state and Wethersfield Community Center, involved with the ones with the wire crimes of the Wethersfield police forging and switching names with the courts doing the same. And they have their social media and readings of statutes and precedents regarding what the difference of what's typed on social media, criminally foreign influence, they've been changing and faking, what's digitally recorded, and hiding what has been confirmed. Increasingly, names next to the state judicial branch offices are increasingly involved with names at a bunch of ways at Trinity at Two Rod Highway, or it runs into Hangdog Lane. It is involved with a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors, like probate court judges, involved with elderly homes, veterans' homes, and hospitals where people are forced to be. And they have roles with drugs and medicine, crime methods, torture, extortion method that our founders communicated for us to communicate about. But our founders' communications about that are being and have been replaced or paced. So we would have answers. We would have had answers. But increasingly, these are people involved with the state corrections offices. Lance Cuddy is one of the ones further involved with men and women, with medical and sexual offenders of kids, and with the intelligence community. I never had a conversation with him in his life. In fact, especially if they pretended, or if he had roles pretending me to words with him. He has roles with a Daryl Sullivan, also with people that switch names, like with a Magdalena and a Maggie, with the intelligence community on all sides of Central Connecticut State University, involved with people with the World Trade Center attack, and a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield, Connecticut, involved intercities with all sides of Wethersfield, of New Britain Superior Court. I mean, of New Britain's Central Connecticut State University. New Britain Superior Court increasingly has positions and people tied to them involved with predicate acts at and next to Central Connecticut State University, as times collusion/S, and roles with ones also at other campuses, intercities and intra-cities. And these are increasingly people involved with a whole bunch of different countries and overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time. But people don't say anything because there's also worse involved. And the people who do say things to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. Because this breaching method only had 3 branches of government to keep criminally foreign influence. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, originally still, and new, kept at the same time need to hide the same sequence shifts, past, active, and their shown needs to look forward to the future, self-valuing how we have been systems abridged, tactical terror from the foreign policy we were supposed to liberate as the value of the Constitution unabridged, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. The nature debate contains quality aspects of nature that we have to address, how they have been stating over it. They've been putting fake transcripts in databases. Harvard Hospital has a whole bunch of people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that there's an Anthony Agman, and there's a Joshua Julian, and there's a Joshua Schumack involved with them with digital crimes, with medicines crimes, and other natures of roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic military, where they have rights to lie and to pretend to be undercover and all those things. These are people increasingly at and next to the corrections offices, at and next to the judicial branch offices, involved with criminally foreign influence uses of the databases, and then further at campuses locations. And their educators had roles too. Hyper additionally, not valued. All exceptions and exception nature come with demonstration of the same thing. That's why we need to get people on paper, because they've been putting faked and changed conversations. They have more involved with WTNH's sources, involved with planting evidences in various natures of organized crimes against elderly, veterans, little kids. The difference of that is also used consciously. Middle age. These are people building upon predicate acts with facts and roles with that, with all kinds of hyper additional motivations stacked into databases, and self-valued roles with use/s with that. Increasingly, people involved at Quinnipiac University with the names Rick Cianfaglione, Fred Grisette, and Kevin Harris, and a whole bunch of people I don't know the names of. They have people film things and they put fake things in the databases at the same time, as well as with identity theft, fraud, slanders too, to make it look like I communicated with them at all, like a Kevin Harris. His mother is increasingly involved with his family and other people tied to them, with people on Valley Crest and Weathersfield, who also have recorded roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, putting fake things in databases with foreign and domestic medical families, too, and for military and intelligence at and next to Harvard Hospital through time, more than a few decades. As people increasingly involved with years apart home break-ins, totally different ones, different instances, but there were time use /s of it that were recorded and brought up by the people involved with the untimely death at Trinity College, and the confessions and demonstrations of it tied to the house that had 1 year before that near my house. There are proofs that might have been murder. Heather Hansen has confessions about that, and with other people that know my name, that don't know their name, that went there with her first. And Joe DeMauro has all kinds of wire crime acts and methods with them. Fake phone transcripts of roles too. And falsified police reports, fake conversations with kids that police had. Ones that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are Mendez police families and their families involved with them, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and differences, rackets, roles. They attach me to they have roles with the men in themselves. As adults, they attach me to fake conversations with them at the police department to pretend I ever had a conversation with that one too, the older Mendez police brother. If there were only two, I don't know how many there are. The other brother too has roles at the same time with his older brother, with the Phil Collo and others with Harvard Hospital, but also with New Britain's Superior Court, also with more sexual and medical offenders of kids, involved with Anthony Yagman, also involved with my algebra teacher, with a Mike Demain and Adam Demain, and the Mendez police, involved next to Fox Connecticut News, also with the Alison Mulcahy, and names all along Route 3 and conjunctions to it, and the Berlin Turnpike, and like Hangdog Lane, where it runs into Two-Rod Highway, are increasingly involved with people involved to put influence to put predicate acts tied to roles with the predicate acts in the databases, rather, as identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, the same ones involved with that. Also with the names at and next to the World Trade Center in the World Trade Center attack context, and the Ninth Circuit Court next to it. And the court itself has a sequence shift involved with names on all sides of that case, brought up by the names that have been forging and switching names and planting faked audio and video transcripts on the campuses intercity connected. In other words, increasingly people that are involved with intelligence community families that used to live in my area are involved with the ones with the extended family members, involved with the World Trade Center attack, and people others tied to them involved with that, and force Saudi's roles, and Saudis force them roles, and also to hide worse involved with A through Z. Also relative to where and to how, there are such criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought overtly and simultaneously, insidiously readings of, logic and of nature and of the religious books. Both the Old Testament and the Quran have parts up front that dictate how to read those books, but nobody even knows about it. Beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. It doesn't say the rest of the book. It says only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together. The Quran, too, has a part that says all that matters is if someone is honest about what are they going to call the name of all space/existence per science, per the science of reading, proper and honestly. It says that's all that matters. And it says even qualifies the person telling them don't pray in the mosque for the slightest reason if you don't agree with it. All that matters is if you're honest about that name. That there's one identity, there's one scientific, there's a singular identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. Again, it is that body that is not the other species' bodies. It is not our species' body, but it has all the different species' bodies with quality aspects in nature, distinct but also non-distinct, and simultaneously, but also all showing us per further / hyper simultaneously how space / existence has one system that is 1/3/5 ways grouped, and the difference of that shows us its body to an extent. It comes also with its equally value, increasingly, its complete identity relationship to itself as that extent too. And the value of that, 3 ways equally increasingly as value. And it is that identity of possession onto and as the difference of the smallest finite detail or the order of the finite. The active details are grouped and those progressive in the form of what it is showing us. Like as showing us its body, where it is showing us the seasons before they come here. We are seeing more than just their value. We are being shown its identity to an extent, its identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. Also further positive onto its system, or it is forced from here, Leaf of Hadith. And its system is every system, even if anything is made up, even art. It's the same way. Its system is 1/3/5 identities of possession. Again, but with the 3/3 and 5, and the difference of that contemplation of observation of it comes with a description of how it shows us that it is functional. Being, in other words, for example, with the present participle and the past participle, we are shown its identity of forever nature as the time with the past part in the present, past participle, present participle. And note these are words that are hyper additionally used for verbs that are inflected or not as a predicate, as a main verb is. A predicate is a main verb. Gerund verbal is to communicate. Everything's about discerning. All the parts of speech are about the invisible, but still discernible. That comes with the hyper invisible, but still discernible. It is the identity of conjunction to all subjects that we could deal with, individually, grouped, and simultaneously, and or progressively. It is as a quality diffusion, It is to appreciate. It is that body that shows us, and we know. We don't even care what country the people are from. We know that they know the extent of the past was true always. They know right now the extent of what is active truth always. They know the extent of the seasons that are not even here. They know about that now. They know we have black pupils, whites of eyes. If they have ever watched American communication, They know that that was left out when they make treatments of slavery. They teach about it exactly where the breaching method wanted and needs. In other words, it's not because the kids didn't do their homework. Why even the FBI has worse than criminal incompetence regarding the predicate acts with facts method. I'm not even a lawyer. That this is about having black people's rights of eyes and having that left out from the subject of what the laws were about that were entrenched before America's founders were born. So the nature debate contains quality aspects of nature, relying upon natures of theater, takes on American history and motivations regarding their sensibilities towards that in all aspects and perception or communications of it. Because this is relative / hyper relative. Because our founders' communications were our place. They were communicated about a human fact treatment nature breaching method that had been entrenched. And sustained roles with it had been sustained since before modern religious messengers were born. There is one way that is most practical and more probable too. Not blaming anybody and taking all real blame. In other words, there are proofs that countries A through Z were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, not even realizing more and more to be only capable of blaming other things, others, or selves for things that are recorded by nature itself and by our founders to have been caused by a breaching method, a human fact treatment nature breaching method. That's one of the things the founders of America behind, and that's James Madison. That's one of the things they communicated to us. And that nature itself, it does too. And if anyone denies that, how they try to defend their logic and their nature will have demonstration / S of the same thing. The only reason such things haven't surfaced is relative to why and to how. Manifest were our timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, news, overt criminal enterprises. I mean, and the interbranch too. All sides of cases too, and their lawyers putting the same sequence shifts. Part of the reason there are so many there are murders concentrated on certain natures of areas is because there are more predicate acts with facts methods concentrated on those areas, and it has a direct correlation. And the statistics locate all natures, ages, and natures of campuses have stayed roles, needs, and natures being and having been influenced originally and still from off all campuses, from off all database locations. Already everyone had been sustained collusion / S with what no one wanted collusion / S with. That hyper criminally foreign influence. That sickly distinctly which had slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies. And through other names and things, while the difference of that was is used remotely criminally foreign influence too, but no one will allow that to be addressed, even though it's discernible. But we have to be able to appreciate the hyper evidential. That's not just so to speak. We have to have this, we have to force this, demand this, discern formally. Because many of us want the predicate acts with facts method slandering our pupils and our whites of eyes addressed. I tell it best. Until we do, as a human species body of individual bodies, as one. The ground below our feet is tactically denatured. It is only capable of being an identity of relationship to nature's identity of relationship to itself and its system that will only demonstrate will only increasingly it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. Acts like predicate acts. Natures like criminal insidiousness natures. Like the people that have been forced, tricked, or persuaded, maintained only capable. Where how they change and fake what we are all trying to communicate perfectly, but having failed to have one person ground what we say when we're regarding the hyper evidential. With those things against our countries, not just America, too. They changed the communications of other countries' leaders, too. In other words, it is discernible just with the nature of debate. Contains quality aspects of nature, criminally forward influence, tactically delusions, rot. It's so critical that to discern the value of how left out all this time, not just left out all this time. And we examine too how left out exactly with the breaching of it syntactically. With all that's said about it and with all that not. How we have black people's rights of life. That's left out, and how the breaching method reassigned it. And had sustained roles with that. And with what it caused, blamed on other things, otherwise ourselves. Otherwise, those persons were direct. They were sensed through their own, without even realizing they were sensing for a breaching method. And then America's founders were born. That purpose, it was just like that. And then Columbus came to America. Already A through Z names had been forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded off of systems natural A through Z. Nature's use of A through Z, which trying to communicate with us. That's one conversation. We can have this other conversation and say people can't entertain people who are ignoring what's not true always, what's still criminally foreign, tactically delusions raw, like the writing about what slavery is about, what witch trials are about, certain type of victim / hyper victim. Forgiveness, part of the reason forgiveness, so we don't have to have nature debate. We focus on the predicate acts with facts method involved here. Not even a lawyer who denies that changing and making laws that change what black people's rights of lives communicate, and making it only communications as criminal insidiousness. Some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. And nature itself demonstrates that to us. All the gateways to all natures of industry have roles with styles, needs, and natures associated with databases. And assumptions by that. Also, tactically delusions wrought regarding how they think the integrity of the value of what's typed in databases. We're going to examine whole predicate acts with facts methods. Forgiveness is also because they won't either they lie about what they think about other people when we say things, like regarding the people involved with the acting tied to the fake things in databases and things told to them, and what they think in their heads regarding who told them, their parents told them. They're putting fake things at each age and they're building upon it. And now they can't afford to get on paper legitimately and to branch. They're forging and switching names as time collusions. That wasn't just them doing that. Is that with the time collusions with the crime scenes and with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time, including the Saudi attackers, through other natures of organized crimes and predicate acts methods that all sides had collusions with, including at the sides of the building of the World Trade Center in New York City. The same name is involved with that, directly and indirectly. They were involved with Washington, D.C. Increasingly, people that were in two speech classes I had are involved with home break-ins in my area through time that involve police forms and courts, and they're educators, and then they're locking people, hiding secrets and roles and fake ties and fake natures of ties to people, and then they can't do it more and more in the future. They need to pretend they know people that they didn't even know. They have to self-value people already being and having been put in the fake locations, fake ties to strangers, fake natures of ties to strangers, foreign and domestic. No. In other words, so the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born. A whole bunch of ways recorded, a whole bunch of ways for torture, extortion, slavery method against every single person sickly distinctly. Rather than self-value, how sickly, not distinctly, everyone was victims to the same thing. If anyone would address that, they would be sensed through other natures of motivations, needs, and interests that no one could fathom how and why they're only capable of being fathomed. With the styles, logic, and nature of people, and the needs to use names or not use names, and the timing of it. This breaching method before computers were. It used the database identities of relativity to everyone, and through everyone rolls with its, job assignments and things like that. All overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists. In other words, interbranch witch trials, intelligence, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. Speaking about crimes, speaking about positive and negative anyway, just like the breaching method knew everyone would do. The names of the people, the sciences, A through Z. Certain type of victim / hyper victim, the only way to do it. That's why everyone will tell you. They'll speak about their motivations, but leaving out the breaching methods rolls with everyone's motivation. Oh, but that's not our we have nothing to do about that. It's not free speech. The breaching method is recorded, rolls with predicate acts with facts. Rolls with it are rolls with predicate acts with facts. If we search, especially where they're using passions and emotions, if you're not using passions and emotions only to liberate, to fight for syntactically that which is true always, not denying the slave sequence, that which is the order, the value, the difference between the order of the finite details, or the value of the finite details. It is the difference between that was acted, grouped, to the extent we can discern. No. It is the value of that which is progressive, or simultaneous. And that's relative because there's the hyper simultaneous is distinct from the simultaneous. But it's real. That's the identity of the hyper simultaneous that we discern, where we discern how the complete identity of the verb, its identity as volume, not just as the word verb, but as the word's participle, as the predicate. We're discerning its volume science to an extent. It's hyper invisible, but still discernible. Identity of value / value progression. Every identity is an identity of forever nature, with the identity of all space / existence is making more of its particular identity of value / value progression through temporary / lasting space nature. And English was revealed to teach this. So increasingly, I speak about things online, and the intelligence families have been faking and changing what I say and said, because since they were kids, they've been repeating fake things. There have been roles of predicate acts with facts at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and now with terrorists too, in ways we could study. And their motivations are irrelevant. These are not just extraterritorial impositions that our side had collusions with the other sides, and worse. Nature itself showing us that these are hyper extraterritorial impositions, to say the least. Campus Marcius rises in the east. So, in other words, we have to admit that this is worse than a war zone and revolution. The revolution stalled out before it could overcome war. The breaching method was too well entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies, with a singular method. The slavery part, overt and insidious, that's just not that's a subject treatment used to measure and maintain. Roles leaving out its roles with that. The breaching method. And doing that is only capable of blaming other things other than ourselves. Because its roles not just with that. Its roles with changing and faking nature's communications and keeping collusions with it. Making things appear to be debatable that are not. And making things that are not debatable. In other words, the only reason it's gotten away with, we examine the substance of research used. See, our founders declassified things about their words, what they said, what everyone said. There was a breaching method sensing everyone and through everyone. Everyone was collusions against themselves to an extent syntactically and nature-wise with positive calmness or aggression. Exactly where the breaching method needs, all raised with it, and exceptions. Tactical or alter from how nature needs us to appreciate such. Nature will only stay positive unto itself, except when it is criminal insidiousness nature. And then it is forced from here, these by these. But that is not the definition of it relative to what our courts could decide. Because they have and have had roles with predicate acts with facts method /S. Much worse than they even had roles putting little kids and people of all ages in jail for, with jails increasingly inclusions with them and the campuses that train the leaders of the prisons, which are also roles with other intelligence from off the campuses, from off all ages and natures of campuses, increasingly hyper additional motivations, nature's needs, apparent interests, even when real. They were our propagated and maintained self-cultivated to hide behind and through by the breaching method. So we don't have to be lawyers. If we ever could get a guy like Judge Napolitano, if we ever had him in a meeting, humanity, he would agree. How could he not agree? One of the things slavery was about was a predicate acts with facts method. It was entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, sickly distinctly against even our founders. Because if you're a fact human nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved, you're also physically. And the difference between that, who was hurt, more sickly, and stuff like that. And all that too. As just some of the overt things, we leave out the breaching method that came first against Native Americans. Part of the reason we leave it out is because it had already been sustained against Native Americans by the same people, by the same method that had been sustained against the names that were sustaining it upon the Native Americans. But there are proofs that there was also a hyper additional name that not A through Z realized. And in other words, it kept and keeps the branches of government, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, as shared. Increasingly self-valued roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same exact time. Terrorists needed to hide the same sequence shifts, the same fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, relative to how, as roles where we have that shell game, the arrays of fake difference, replacing what our founders and what nature communicates to ourselves about the human fact, human nature, breaching method, true all ways, what those laws were value as, what witch trials were about. Clearly, they were completely made up. Regarding who made them up, they're about that fact, human nature, torture, extortion, and slavery method entrenched in the limited means of, but the only means founded by our founders behind James Madison and his plan as him. And then they went to get to James Madison. Then they went to get George Washington to agree to use that plan. That's what caused the Declaration of Independence. That's what caused the Constitutional Convention. And James Madison and our other founders. And then the presidents. Even as a founder and as a president, he still didn't have free speech because it was still a breaching method entrenched. We're supposed to get the Constitution unabridged. And rights too numerous, that we have rights too numerous to have to list them. And we weren't supposed to blame criminal foreign influences, leaving out the hyper criminal foreign influences too. Because distinctly, the names of countries A through Z were our counters to the worst use /S of all locations, areas, and states everywhere the species body is. In other words. And what that causes, increasingly only capable of being blamed on other things other than self by the nation's people speaking for crimes. They have roles of predicate acts of facts methods. They would and will repent when shown correct. So we have to show everyone guilty at the same time. And that being hadn't been used by the hyper additional, which we could discern. But we have to begin by using by appreciating the scientific value of the human fact, human nature breaching method. Again, as it is presented to us that way by nature itself, because it is one of the things true always. That things like slavery were about, witch trials. They're about a human fact, human nature breaching method. There are other things that it is about true always. It was variably about, remember, and the things about constantly. And what we are discerning is the identity of what is true always, to an extent. But it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself and the value of that. Three ways equally increasing. And the value of our contemplation of it, of being led by how it is functional, being hyper invisible, distinctly from invisible, but still discernible. This comes with the parts of speech being the invisible, but still discernible. Teach or show of this. That comes with the future and the past, invisible but still discernible. Like the seasons, the future, their identity is already discernible. Comes with the hyper invisible but still discernible too. Oh, thank you.